is it the instructional designer? Which
Right.
they're probably in the best place because they understand the outcomes. They're already working with the subject matter expert for validation, right? So, but yes, like some of those like branching scenarios, I'll put in a bunch of restrictions. A lot of times I'll put stuff like only use the content that's been uploaded, right? So I just try to make sure that I'm narrowing what it will work within, so I don't get something crazy that's not related and it's still aligned with that objective.
Right.
Because I actually I tend to usually write in a kind of an endpoint where I have to analyze the results of that branching scenario against the objectives, just to give some kind of like. Granted, you still need to look at it, right? You still need to look at it. You can't just accept what it produces, but it can give you an idea of where you're meeting those objectives or not. Um, so I think that's an unsolved question right now. And maybe in organizations don't know where to go with this is if we do start using AI as an instructional tool, who's putting the guardrails on there? Are we just giving them to the student to do? Or is it going to be an institutional like programming piece where it's like a closed AI system? So these are all like big questions, right? That we're trying to figure out. But I know for me, if I use it as AI as an instructional tool, I'm either going to provide the prompt to the individual to copy and paste if I want them to use it that way, because then it has all the guardrails in it, right, for them to use. Or I'm going to use like a live system where I'm controlling it, right? So then we
Right.
can, you get, again, that's just kind of my take on it right now. Um, when we think through these, but I think you're absolutely right. What happens now if we're, now we have LMSs that have AI chat in them, and we're using that as an instructional tool and scaffold. What role does the instructional designer have in how that tool is being used within that course? Because there's probably times in that course you don't want it to be used because you want the cognitive effort to happen. So again, this is breaking, right? We're still trying to figure this out. As
Right.
educators are coming together and trying to figure out how do we make this happen. And we have policy guidelines, we have technology limitations. Um, but at some point we're gonna have to try to figure this out and what that means. And then again, what is the instructional designer role there?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe as part of your ID team now, you got the ID, you got your media specialist, and now you have a machine learning AI guy, right, or person that's on your team now, because as you develop what you want the tool to do, they're doing it for you. Maybe.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that might be the case. Yeah, I can see that being really helpful, for training, for courses and things like that, building that in there. That's one thing we've been doing with these interactive personas, where, where it acts like the client or the patient or something if it's for nursing, and then our media design team, they actually have a template, and they have either the college representative or subject matter expert fill it out, and then they put, what's the scenario look like? What's the demographics of the individual? And then at the very bottom, they put like, what is this tool not supposed to say or do? What are the limitations? What do you want it not to, do, or what do you want it to do? Yeah, exactly. But that's one of the requirements, is they have to put the limitations in there.
Yeah. Because again, it'll just go right. If you don't tell it, it doesn't know. So
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And even like you mentioned with that's great how you mentioned, like, with the chatbots and LMS systems. The university that I teach for, they don't have that yet, but I'm sure it's going to be coming. But that's true. I mean, there's certain things that you don't want that enabled for, right? That you want that cognitive effort, because then, users if they get used to seeing it in there, or learners get used to it, they're going to think, oh, I can just go to this and click on that little bubble, right? And get the help. But sometimes you want them to work through that
and
on their own.
a-
Yeah.
and where I see it like really super important, or when we think about this, is just when we talk about foundational domain knowledge, because it you have to establish that before you can actually evaluate a response from one of these systems, right? Because if you don't have the domain knowledge, how do you know what it's telling you is not right without, you have to start doing some deeper research. So you're more likely probably just to accept it. So there's already a risk, right? Without having that
Right.
domain knowledge. So we definitely we want to think through, what are the things where we want to use that tool where it's augmenting, but what are those times where we want to create that cognitive effort at the level we need to produce that domain knowledge?
Absolutely. Wow. Love that.